Hello, this is Allison Haikila, and welcome to the It's All About the Bees hop. A few friends and I decided to get together and do a fun little YouTube hop with a bee theme. So that's what we're going to be making today, a fun card with some bees. So I have these two stamps from Stampendous. This one's a little older, and we're going to be combining these sets to make a fun card. So I really love this background, this kind of distorted hexagon honeycomb background, so we're going to be working with that. But I really love this chunky little bee in this set, so I really want to use that fella for the card that we're making today. So what I have is a few different colors of distress ink, and the reason I'm using distress ink as opposed to oxide is because the ink has a more pure color, whereas oxides get a little chalky as you wet them and use them, which is the whole point. You know, you want them to oxidize and get that kind of chalky finish, but for this card I'd like to keep the colors as pure as possible, so that's why I'm working with the ink. Now you may think that the first three here are kind of intuitive for working with a honeycomb, but I really wanted to add a little crushed olive just to add kind of a pop of an interesting color to go along with the rest. So I have a spare mat for my Tim Holtz glass mat here. This is the same mat that's on this side. Just happen to have a spare. So I'm going to just smush some of these colors into this mat here. And then, a little bit more of that, we are going to apply it to a background. I didn't go too heavy with the crushed olive. I don't want it to be too green, just a bit, just a little green. Now I'm just spraying it with a bottle of clean water, and then we're going to just dip this in a bit. And I'm going to rotate this a bit as I'm dipping it so we don't just have these blocks of color. And I'm probably going to need to add more mustard seed. See how that background is coming along already? We're just dipping it into that color, kind of placing it where we want it. This is a fun and fast technique. I'm going to get a little bit more of the mustard seed on the mat in these places here so that I can get a little bit more of that yellow. I really want it to have a lot of the yellow. There we go, good. And then we can layer the colors on top of each other a bit if we dry this down. Now, these are dye-based inks and they're transparent. So when you layer, you could wind up hiding some of the color underneath it, but that's all right because you'll still get a cool effect. See how that's happening? Look at that, really pretty. The crushed olive wasn't quite showing up enough, so I added a bit of peeled paint to my mat. So I am spritzing that with some more water, and we're going to just dip this in just a bit, just to get some of that green. This is a fun technique to do if you're kind of in a slump and you don't really know what you feel like making, but you want to make something, but you just don't know what. Making backgrounds is one of my favorite things to do. Even if it's not going to produce a finished card right at that time, I still enjoy making those backgrounds and then just saving them for another time. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to dry this down off camera with my heat gun, and we'll see if we need to add any more layers. Okay, so this is all dry, and I think I want to get just a little bit more of the vintage photo in there, so I added a bit more to my palette here with some water, and I'm just going to lightly tap it just to kind of get some of those droplets happening. A little bit more right over here. See these drops? It's kind of what I want to have happen right on the card. And I think I forgot to mention, but this is watercolor paper that I'm working on. See this? That's what I wanted right there. Just a little bit. There we go. That looks pretty good. There is our finished background. It's all dry. It's got a little bit of a warp to it, but as we work with it, it will flatten out a bit. This is, again, watercolor paper, so it's nice and thick, has a nice texture to it. So now we're going to add our honeycombs. So I've got some Gina K amalgam ink, and the reason I decided to use this ink is I'm not sure if we're going to be adding anything to the honeycombs once we've got it on there. And if we do, I'm not quite sure yet what I'll be using, if it'll be Copics or if it'll be Ziggs or some other type of watercolor paint or marker. So this ink is great for anything that you work with. If it's watercolors or alcohol markers or whatever, this ink is not going to go anywhere, so that's why I chose this. So I've got my Misty here. And I plan on making this a horizontal card. This is already cut to 4 by 5 1/4 so that it will fit on my card base nicely, which will be a standard A2 size card. And kind of want to have it coming off the edges a little bit. So I'll move my magnet over here, so this way if we need to restamp it we can. That seems pretty good. Okay. And now I'm going to just close my door, open it back up, and I will apply the ink. So this hop is among a few friends. It's myself, Nancy from Handy Scandy, Shell from Scrap Secrets, Candace of Candoodle Creations, and Marie Walton from Marie's Vermont Creations. At the time that I filmed this, our other friend Tara was invited from Mayhem Crafty Cards, but she may not be able to participate. But I did want to mention that she might be around. Not sure. You can check the link list down below to see if she is. And if not, we'll just have to do a collaboration another time when she's able to hop along with us. So you can see how grungy that looks. I love that. Okay, so we definitely want to add some more. So I'm going to move this up a bit. I'm going to clean off my stamp. So this way when I place it back on my card front, it doesn't get any ink anywhere that I don't want it to. So we're just gonna, because they're hexagons, they'll just fit right into each other. So I'm connecting it right there. We're gonna move this over a little bit because the stamp is going past the card and onto my ruler over here, which I don't want it to do. So we're gonna just do that. Close the door again. There we go, and apply some more ink. Now we don't have to go across the entire bottom of it because there's no card there. Might need to add a little bit more over here, but that's okay. That is one reason why using a stamping tool like this is useful, because if you need to restamp or add more ink or anything, you can pretty easily. There we go, and that lined up really nicely. There we go. Okay, so now I think that we're going to add our little bee. And again, I want to use a different set for the bee than what we used for the honeycomb. So here's our bee. I think that's a fun spot for it, right? You know what? Let's move this whole thing down. It's a little easier to line things up when they're in the corner. This way, if you need to restamp and something shifts, you can just get it right back into that corner. I'm actually thinking maybe we'll put the bee over here, because then, depending on what our sentiment is, let's see. Nope, maybe the bee's gonna go over there. I kind of like this sentiment. Their bodies are heavy, their wings too small, but yet they fly after all. Believe. I think that's really cute. So let's put the bee here, and then we could potentially put the little trail that's here onto this. I think that's going to work out just fine. Okay. Close the door, ink the bee up. What a cute bee. Definitely want to ink it again. And we're going to make it so that he's not so transparent. We'll color up his body a bit. He's cute. Okay. And then we'll get that trail on there. Let's see, how how do we want this to go? I think that if we do it this way, whoops, I should have it facing the right direction, right? There we go. That's cute. Yep, that's fun. And it brings your eye into the piece a little bit more too. And at the same time, we can also add our sentiment. So we're really using several things from both of these sets. Now I want to make sure that I have my words where there's no honeycomb. So we're going to tuck it in just like that. That looks like it's pretty good. And we'll pick that up with door. And now we can ink both of these things at the same time. Adorable. So cute. We don't actually need to ink up the trail again, so I'm going to just remove it. And we'll just do the words again. There we go. Perfect. That's really cute. Okay, so now I've zoomed in a little bit and we're going to start adding some additional color. So I have a white Posca pen. I love these pens. And then I have a bunch of Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens from Kuretake. So we're going to start with the Posca pen, and I'm going to shake this up a little bit. And I'm going to start with the wings, because their wings, although they're transparent, I don't want the color to be quite, the color from underneath to be quite so obvious. So a little transparency is okay, but I do want them to be a little bit more white. So I'm just going to add in some color quickly here. And these are like a paint pen, so you have to shake them up before you use them. They come in a bunch of colors and a bunch of sizes. And as white pens go, I'm really happy with this one. See how that's just lightening it up a little bit? There we go. And you can still see some of that color underneath, which is fine. But I wanted those wings to stand out more. And if you go over any of those black lines, that's okay. We can always add some more black into it later with like a fine liner of some kind, like a Pitt pen or something like that. So I'm just gonna color these shapes in loosely. I don't need to be perfect with it. Just trying to lighten the color that's in the background. There we go. Just like that. Perfect. Okay, so now, like I said, I pulled out a bunch of different colors. I don't know if we're going to use them all, but we'll see. So I definitely want to use a little bit of the bright yellow color. And we're just going to add a little bit of extra colorant to some of these. Now, these are watercolor markers, so they are going to make the distress markers below kind of reactivate a bit. Especially when I go in with my brush and my water, it's going to really make those distress colors move. So you want to be careful. If there's an area that you want to preserve, don't put your marker there, don't add water there, because you could very well kind of change it completely. So we're just kind of going in and just blending it out a little bit. But you can see that it's adding a little bit of interest and some depth to those honeycombs. So we can add a little bit more up here. I don't want to do all of them, just a few. Might go in with another color, and I can always blend it out with another color too. In fact, we might try that next. Let's go in with some yellow and just kind of work that color out a little bit. Kind of get rid of that line that we have from the marker. Or just soften it a bit. Just like this. There we go. I kind of am interested in what would happen if I add this mid-green. It really blends in nicely with the peeled paint. But if we feel like any of these areas needs a little bit more green, we can kind of mimic the effect of the peeled paint and kind of just add some splotches here and there. And then when we go in with our water, we can soften it out and it almost looks like it's just more peeled paint. See that? And that's a good reason why we, using the amalgam ink before was really helpful, because we didn't have to worry. I thought about using Copics, but I didn't have to worry so much about, is my ink going to smear? Is my stamp going to get ruined? My stamped image? But it doesn't matter because the amalgam ink works for everything. So. And then if we want to add a little bit more brown, we can do that too. Just a few touches here and there. And this color is just brown. It's just called brown. A little bit more water. There we go. Brown is a little too red for my liking on this, so I am toning it down with a little bit of platinum brown. It's okay if some of it shows, but it's just a little too red for my liking on this card. That's better. And you don't have to add all of this marker stuff that I'm doing here. I just like to add a little bit more detail. A little bit more of the platinum brown. Might need to let it dry a bit first. That's my cat, in case you heard that meow just now. There we go. I think he might be hungry. Okay, looking pretty good. I'm going to add a little bit more. I went over a few of those areas a little bit more, like wherever I had the brown, because it's so red. I actually added some of the mid-green on top of that, and that calmed down that color quite a bit. So the platinum brown alone wasn't doing it, but adding the mid-green on top really did make a big difference. So that is the finished top. So now what we're going to do is add this to our base. Although, you know what, guys? I think we need a little something something on that background. What do you think? On the card base itself? Let's see. Let's take a look. I grabbed the peeled paint and I'm just going to kind of tap it. One of the things I like about felt ink pads is the texture that it has. Foam is fine, but it doesn't have a texture. It's super smooth. And I like getting the texture off of the felt. See this nice texture here? Now you're not going to see most of that, but you'll see a little bit. And I think it adds something extra to the card. Now we can see. Yep, that's much better. There we go. Just going to get that as centered as possible. Smooth that down, and we have our finished card. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please make sure that you go through the rest of the hop. I can't wait to see what everybody else makes. All of the information about the products that I used, as well as the links to all of my wonderful friends, is down below. And I hope to see you back here again very soon. Thanks so much for stopping by. Peace out.